Well, the election is over and the results are in, and they're calling it a Democratic tsunami. Here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we have a new governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and the House of Delegates is in the supermajority of the Democrats. It's stayed the water. I'm your host, Eric LaVeist, and you're joining us for the After the Election recap, looking at the historic election of 2025 here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Once again, we want to thank you for joining us, as you always do, as we broadcast from the campus of the Norfolk State University, home of the Spartan Nation, from none other than WNSB, Hot 91, the soul of VA. Well, you know, this is a show that we do every year after elections, and it's one where we dive in and take a look at the results. As I mentioned before, this was a historic election as we elected the first woman to be governor here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and also the first Black attorney general here in the Commonwealth, and the first person of Muslim and Indian descent to be elected as lieutenant governor. There's been a lot of firsts here in the Commonwealth and a lot of things that are happening. And as I always say, and pun intended, as Virginia goes, so does the rest of the country, because we are the cardinal in the coal mine. Joining me to break down these results, look at the impact, and look ahead, because 2026 campaigning started this week, is none other than my good friend, award-winning journalist, and yes, HBCU graduate from Lincoln University and board member, none other than Dr. Will LaVeist. Will, how you doing this Sunday morning?
Hey, it's a pleasure, Dr. Claville, man. Always a pleasure to be with you and be on the air in my second home, Virginia.
Absolutely. You know, Will, you and I, we talk all the time. We're good friends. We have a podcast together, and we do a lot of media together. And, you know, we've been going back and forth about this election and looking at the state of the country since 2024, whether it be the election, the campaigning from Biden to Trump, from Trump to Harris, and then the administration of Trump 47, which is going to go down as one of the most transformative and impactful, whichever way you want to look at it, for all that's good and for all that's not here that we have in our country. So, right. Will, even after all of that, I want to first give a shout out to all of our federal workers, civil service workers who are furloughed, all those that are laid off, all those that have lost their jobs in the midst of the government shutdown, and all those who are struggling because of loss of SNAP benefits across the country. We know that some states like Virginia have released emergency funds for people. This is the holiday season, Will, and Thanksgiving and Christmas may not look too good for a lot of people. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're spot on. A shout out to them and those who continue to go to work, like those at the TSA agents and the air traffic controllers, you know, and others that continue to go to work and without paychecks. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the Congress members who have created this mess continue to receive their paychecks. You know, the president continues to receive his paychecks. So this is really something that has definitely impacted the election results as people see what's going on around the country and people see the insensitivity that's going on among our leaders and, you know, even stemming from the very beginning of the administration with the whole chainsaw massacre, Elon Musk of Doge, and just this level of malice and insensitivity. And now people are really feeling it in the pocketbooks. And I think that it's affecting, in a positive way, how the country is looking at its leadership and making decisions.
You know, Will, when you talk about workers working without pay, you know, that goes back to Ronald Reagan's administration where air traffic controllers went on strike in the union. And,
right.
He ended the union and they had to work without pay. But I tell you what, you know, you're working without pay, nobody wants that. I don't want it. I know you don't want it.
Absolutely not.
You know, so we salute our service members, civil service workers, federal employees, everybody for continuing to do your job, continue to serve our country the way that you do in the midst of all of this governmental shutdown. And listen, We've got 10% cuts of flights across the country. Flights are being impacted immediately. And I don't know about you, but if it's one set of workers I want to be paid so that we could be safe, it's our traffic controllers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm getting ready to take a flight to Israel, Palestine, and my first leg of my flight was already canceled. So I've already had to make, arrangements to get on that flight, going out of Washington, Dulles to Tel Aviv, man. So this is real. And my issues are minor compared to the people who are having to go to work and not receive their paychecks for the great work that they're doing. Again, while our members of Congress are not even in Congress, not even at work and receiving paychecks. I mean, the country has got to be seeing this. And like I said, the positive in this is that folks are waking up and like, no, this is unacceptable.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the results that we've seen have definitely been driven by that.
Let's segue right into the election. Government is shut down, layoffs, Doge, all of that, and the dramatic changes in the federal agencies, all that seem like at lightning speed, something that we haven't seen before ever. And we have not just a change of party affiliation within the House and within the governor's mansion, but a tsunami. Will, what do you believe was the impact that all of that had on the races here in the Commonwealth?
I think there's a natural inclination to go to the opposite party or the opposition party when there's a party in power and things are not working well. And so that's a natural thing, right? But with what has happened over the past, from the beginning of this year, and like I said, the insensitivity of the way things have been done and how now it's starting to impact people in their pocketbooks, I think is what has definitely driven this tsunami that has happened. And I think that the Democratic Party should not make the mistake of taking this for granted, that people are all of a sudden turning to Democrats because they are Democrats. No, they're turning to the opposition. They're turning to an alternative to what is not working. So just like they turned to the Republican Party when they felt what was happening with the Democrats was not working, we're now seeing another turn, that people are turning away to who is in power and what is not working for them. So I hope that as these new people come into office, that they keep that in mind. I want to give a shout out to Jay Jones, who, was under a tremendous amount of pressure for, mistakes that he made in text messaging, but was able to become, the first, as you said, first black attorney general. I'm sure his family, his grandfather, his late father, late grandfather, proud of him being able to achieve this. But my hope is that having achieved this, that he doesn't become just another status quo keeper, that he actually becomes someone who makes a difference, because there's a whole line of people who have become the first, but then once they become the first, they just maintain the status quo. They don't really do much. And so that's what my hope is that this tsunami is not taken for granted, but that people in power actually start doing what is in the best interest of the people who put them there.
Absolutely. When you mentioned, that they turned to the other party, I want to talk about this later, but I guess we're talking about it now. Was this a MAGA backlash or voters and Americans looking for the New Deal, right? There's been, of course, with this election, we mentioned all of the things that are happening. We know that the president was elected with a majority vote and really a mandate for the most part in taking Democratic stronghold states, especially in the Midwest, like he did. That was the blue wall. The blue wall was broken down. It seems like it's been erected back up right now because it looks like Virginia is pushing in that direction. Will, when we take a look at the message that was given, the speeches across the board, we look at the concession speech and the victory speech. Of course, Lieutenant Governor Wisdom Sears, the first black woman to be the major candidate of a major party for governor, again, historic within the South.
Right.
you take a look at her speech and you listen to now the governor-elect, Spanberger, her speech was more of a unification speech. Her speech was more, as she mentioned, the voters chose pragmatism over partisanship and want normacy over toxicity.
Right.
Do you believe that they're striking the right message? And by the way, the concession speech was more, stronghold of where her position was, more of the, I wouldn't say conservative, but probably the MAGA, the extremists of the party. But would you say that middle of the ground, that centrist message to unify the country is what the Democrats are believe that the people want?
I think what the people want is a relief from the pain that they share in common. So I don't think that it comes down to basically the economy, how people are being impacted financially. So you can always use rhetoric to have people divided and it's an us against them type of mentality, right? That's always going to work to a certain extent. But when it comes down to dollars and cents and we sharing in common pain at the gas pump, pain in the grocery stores, pain trying to get rent, pain trying to get a mortgage, we're going to start looking for who is speaking to relieving that pain. And I think that Mondani in New York, the mayor race, he spoke to that. I'm up here in Philadelphia, so I'm hearing as well the governor's races in the commercials. She spoke to that. The Democratic winner spoke to that. And we see that being spoken to in Virginia as well. So I think what Democrats were successful at doing was honing in on what is the predominant issue that people have this shared pain about and that they want relief from. And it comes down to the economy. And it's actually the same message or similar message or similar theme that Trump honed in on, right? It was about, I can fix the economy. I'm going to do this. Me alone can fix this and that and the other. And what people are seeing now, even though they knew it then, there was a lot of rhetoric and he's talking a lot of craziness, but that's Trump and that's what he does. But now they're also seeing, no, he actually has not been delivering on what he claimed and what we thought he might be able to do as a so-called successful businessman. So now they're seeing the pain and feeling the pain. So I think it's not so much about people wanting to be unified. I don't know if you can ever point to any time in this country where the nation was totally unified around some kind of cultural issue or way of being, other than, perhaps the time of, World War II, maybe. You can point to that. But there's no time where the country is like unified when it comes to all of these various cultural issues that the politicians like to tap to get votes. But when it comes to the economy's stupid. That's what it is.
James Carville,
we share in common.
Raging Cajun.
And that's right. Who's going to speak to that and resolve that? That's who's going to get the vote.
It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Eric LaVeist, and you're joining us for the 2025 Virginia recap after the election. And we're talking about the Democratic tsunami here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Here on last Tuesday, history was made. We elected the first woman, the first to be governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the first Muslim and Indian person of descent to be elected as lieutenant governor, and the first black to be elected as attorney general. And not only that, but the House of Delegates, the General Assembly, it was a margin of 51-48 prior to the election in favor of Democrats. But now, after picking up 13 seats, there is a super majority. That's right. The Democrats hold 64 seats in the General Assembly, adding an additional 5 to the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus, which gives a historic total of 37 persons of African-American descent serving in Virginia's General Assembly, along, once again, with his first black Speaker of the House. Joining us to discuss the impact of this is none other than my good friend and no stranger to the station, award-winning journalist, Dr. Will LaVeist. Will, I want to segue a little to the impact of the House of Delegates and that race. But I want to get your take on the three races at the top of the ticket because I really want to spend some time on what it really means legislatively that we have these games. But I want to hit on two quick things. I know we got a lot to talk about, but you mentioned grabbing hold to the message of today, right? Like
Right.
President Trump did it, and then now we believe that there are others that are grabbing hold to it with the economic message. In the New York Times, matter of fact, the New York Post, it printed the paper. It says the red apple. So it shows the new mayor, Zodami, holding up in victory with a Russian sickle, Soviet Union sickle, right? So you know the symbol. And then it says, on your marks, M-A-R-X, get set, Z-O. And it says,
New York Post,
right, socially, it says socialist Zomandani wins race for mayor. Oh my goodness. So it's, anytime right now, economic inequality is at its all-time high. You have an individual who may be the first trillionaire, Elon Musk, in the world. By the way, all these individuals rely upon the government for funding and their own wealth as well. Also, just this past Friday, President Trump asked the court to give them relief from the federal judge's ruling to do what? Not to enter into some deal or do something just dramatic, but guess what? The Trump administration asked an appeals court to immediately halt the ruling on SNAP funding.
Right.
Will, we're talking about giving people food. We're talking about what Zomandani says. Hey, free bus rides so people can get to work. Affordable rent control areas where individuals can actually live where they work. Right?
Right.
Right. So, when we talk about individuals who are just off their kilter or have a different mindset, you have the majority of American people who are, listen, two paychecks, one paycheck, you could probably skate it. Two, you're probably going into your savings. But if you go, 90 days without paychecks, there are some problems that's going to be there. Most people want paycheck. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They got gigs upon gigs.
That's right.
Economic inequality. Talk about that and how you believe that message is resonating.
Well, one of the things that I love about being a Gen Xer is that, we sit in this position where we know some things about history that went before us, the stuff that we lived, and also, we're able to navigate in what is going on now, right? And so when I hear Trump saying, or the New York Post, I got to admit, when I see creative headlines like that, it makes me miss the newsroom because I used to be a copy editor at one point in my career. But when I see things like that, them calling him Mondami a communist, it's like that's a label from a bygone era that just does not land the same as it landed some years ago. When I was a kid and we were having bomb shelter emergency practices as a kid in elementary school.
Put your head,
what I mean?
Put your head on your desk or get under your desk. As if that desk was going to do something against a nuclear bomb.
Exactly. So somebody who was an adult then or whatever, hearing communist, that resonates differently. To my adult children who are in their 30s, that doesn't mean who are in their 30s and a voting age, and those who are younger and of voting age, that doesn't mean the same thing. And also, when they see the President of the United States rolling out the red carpet to the biggest communist on the planet,
Vladimir Putin,
and saying we're friends and we have good relations and so forth, and it just does not land the same. So that's a total generational disconnect that's going on there. And people are smart enough to realize that what Mondami is talking about, he's not talking about, I want this to become, a total socialist nation, a communist nation. We already have different elements of socialism built into our system. What do people think Social Security is? What do you think Medicare, Medicaid, what do you think free public schools is? So these things just don't land the same. And I think that younger people and people of voting age are intelligent enough to be able to see through the rhetoric and the labels and understand what is most important. And again, across the board, you're seeing what is most important is, as you said, this disparity between the haves and have-nots, the unlikelihood that I'll, as a young person, be able to buy a home, the unlikelihood of being able to pay off my student loans. These are the things that people are looking at. And then they're seeing, like you said, people like Elon Musk being in the news that he's now on the way of being a trillionaire, was the same guy that was on stage with a chainsaw reveling of cutting people's jobs. Come on now. This is the era of we're witnessing the era of Marie Antoinette. Let them eat cake. And that's what's going on, and that's what people are voting against.
Absolutely. And it seems that wave is continuing with the election in New Jersey, with the female governor as well, who was roommates in Congress with our governor-elect, and also in California with Proposition 50, which allows California's legislature to withdraw congressional maps in response to the GOP, more specifically President Trump, forcing or putting pressure on Republican legislatures to increase their gains in Congress to redraw maps off session, which again, it kind of goes to, when it says play by the rules. People say play by the rules, right? The establishment. Play by the rules and you'll make it, and so forth and so on. Well, when you play by the rules and you win, guess what the establishment does? They change the rules.
Yeah.
Like,
people see that. And it's so blatant, and people see it, and this is what they're voting against. And this is why I hope that those who have been ushered into power now actually become change agents, actually do something. That they do not just morph into the same old typical politician, because
Absolutely.
You and I have been around long enough to see that happen too, where these folks talk about transformative messages and so forth. When I get into office, I'm going to do this, that, or the other, make all these transformative moves, and then they disappoint us. This is what that must be different. This must be different this time around. Those of you who've gotten into office, what you must do is actually execute on what people put you in office to do. Don't just change their office around and turn it into your own personal piggy bank like so many other public servants have done and continue to do.
Absolutely. So when we talk about change agent, we know that change comes through policy. Here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, policy is truly made through the legislature, and really every legislature, even though executive orders have been used more and more with partisan politics and log jams in Congress to get things done. We find that executive orders also have the force of law, but the most impactful and broad changes come through policy, statutes, and laws and acts that are passed through the legislature. Here in the Commonwealth, as I mentioned previously, along with the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general being elected, we elected a new class of House of Delegates. All 100 seats were up. With that being the case, we have now a supermajority in the House of Delegates. Basically what that means is that, for the most part, for just about every single piece of legislation that's passed in the General Assembly, the Democrats really don't have to talk to the Republicans about it at all. They can pass it party vote, and they can also defeat anything from the other side that they want through party line vote. Will, what do you think that voters were actually thinking when you look at those seats? Now, keep in mind, I thought that, and of course, I was on air doing election analysis, very fortunate and blessed to be able to do it here in the Commonwealth.
Hey, yeah, you did an excellent job. Excellent job.
Hey, I appreciate that. And also, this year I was able to do it also in the D.C. market. So to God be the glory, and hopefully we'll continue to build on that. But we saw where there were 10 competitive seats. There were 7 that were occupied by Republicans, right? 3 occupied by Democrats. Those 10 seats all went for Harris in the presidential election. So they figured, let's put up candidates and put money into it and see what we can do. Now, I thought they'll pick up half, right? I said that, but they picked up all 10 plus 3. I was like, wow, look at that. What do you think the voters were actually thinking when they flipped those seats? A lot of them in Northern Virginia, too. I know it seems like a no-brainer, but,
I think part of it is, as you well know, a lot of the way to win elections is about getting your own people out, getting your own people excited. And so I don't know the exact stats on it, but I would imagine that you had more Democrats come out and more independents lean towards Democrats come out and vote. I mean, I know in New York, right, they had the sort of the largest voter turnout, I think, dating back to 1969.
Right.
So I think,
in an off year. This is not a presidential year. Even in the Commonwealth, we had record voting, early voting, and presidential level voter participation. That's crazy.
Yeah. So you got people who were motivated to vote. So you had decent candidates, and then so people were motivated by that, and then they're also motivated by the, like I said, the insensitivity that's going on with the opposition. So they're excited and motivated and angry and coming out to vote appropriately to make change. And then I think, those who may have voted for Republicans in the past, again, I've been seeing some things online, man, and this, I hate to laugh, but it's true. It's like you see things on social media where folks are in line, in the food lines at the food pantries, and folks are asking them, where's your red hat? Why are you not wearing your red hat now? You're in line for food. So you had the folks who, again, might have been energized by the change that Trump was promoting. They didn't come out and vote. They're not energized like that because they're feeling that pain. So I think, again, the economy is a huge driver, and then when you have good candidates who are authentic and are speaking to the issues that people are most concerned about, you're going to get these kinds of results. And I think that's what we're seeing across the board.
So, Will, what are some of the policies you think that the Democrats have to focus on? And we talked about messaging. We talked about what this is. Of course, there were platforms that were run on, protecting reproductive rights, also voting rights, of course. And then, there was a couple other things in there. But really, this election was not about any of that. This election was about normacy and protecting democracy and stability and economics. This was an economic election, straight up and down, side to side. Listen, right now, farmers are hurting. One of the major voting blocks for the president. I sent you a story early this week, Will, where 5 farmers in Arkansas committed suicide because they're not getting relief or aid. Of course, we can delve into the reasoning behind that, but this is economic. So in the last 60 seconds, what do you think that the General Assembly should focus on moving into the new year coming in January?
Economics, equal opportunity. People are not looking for a handout and some kind of unearned advantage. People want equal opportunity to compete. It's just that simple. I just want, James Brown, the prophet, James Brown said, I don't need nobody to give me nothing. Just open the door and I'll get it myself.
That's right.
I'll get it myself. It's as clear as day. So all of this talk about DEI and people getting unearned stuff and all of this is nonsense. People see that as nonsense as folks who are not qualified are being appointed in positions and given opportunities, or people who don't need all of these tax breaks are being granted the tax break.
Yeah.
So I think it's economics and opportunity. I just want an opportunity. Just give me an equal opportunity to succeed. I'll go in there and do it myself.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
That's it. Well, as always, I appreciate you for joining us here on Say the Water. You're my good friend, and listen, I love your insight. extremely informative, brilliant in your own right. And again, you bring it when you come here and everything that you do in your writing. Listen, I want to have you back next week because I want to talk about the impact of the government shutdown, because this is reaching a point where it's past serious. It is something that we've got to talk about. But once again,
appreciate you doing great work, man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Once again, I want to thank all of you for joining us here on Stay the Water, where we bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to you to discuss issues important to the community. Until next time, be good, be great. God bless, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Carrie Washington, and you're listening to State of the Water with award-winning host Dr. Eric Clavel.